very good morning to you, Angus. Is Nestle one of those companies that people think of as kind of recession-proof?
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because of course, as we all know here in the UK, Nestle took one of our big household names, Cadbury's, took over that firm. And it would seem that during the recession, there's probably rather a safe bet to be out of that stock, or even possibly take a speculative short, expecting share prices to underperform. But that's not the case. It seems that with commodity prices that have dipped quite a bit, obviously for them, the underlying costs have meant that revenues have performed particularly well in the last quarter. So rather a rosy picture for Nestle. We're expecting the stock to open up certainly this morning. But longer term, if they find that the core markets for Nestle are going to struggle, then it might not be so easy for them going forward.
Well, you're talking about core markets, and let's turn to other results we've had today, which are Ericsson, Barton. They've been doing particularly well in their core markets, better than at least we expected.
They certainly have. Latin America sales almost doubling. China, Northeast Asia sales going to 9.7 billion Swedish krona from 6.9 billion. We were talking earlier, we were talking about North America, because back in July, of course, Ericsson earnings missed estimates. One of the reasons why it said that US spending was slowing. Is it still slowing? Check this out. North American sales, 12.1 billion Swedish krona versus 12.9 billion a year earlier. Just talking about the USO, and what's been happening there is the likes of AT&T, the likes of Verizon have been adding capacity to keep up with data from smartphones and tablet customers. They're still adding capacity, but at a slower rate. But you'd have to say Ericsson, the growth is coming from the emerging markets, from the Latin Americas, from the Chinas, from the Northeast Asias.
Angus Campbell, do you like Ericsson?
Yeah, I mean, Ericsson, as Mark points out, is very much an emerging market story. I mean, these are impressive results. Their revenues clearly show that. They've beaten expectations. So the share should perform relatively well on the back of that this morning. But it's definitely those BRIC countries which are crucial to them. I mean, you know, stagnation in Europe, but they are sort of modernising in those sort of overdeveloped markets for them, but definitely very much an emerging market story.
OK, let's move on now to, I think it's the world's biggest paint maker,
yeah.
Akzo Nobel.
Yeah, I mean, we asked 3 questions earlier, me and you, Owen. We wanted to know, can the chief executive, Hans Wickers, who's leaving in April, can he revive the company's paint sales before he steps down in April? And the big question is, has he answered that? Well, we've got a bit of an answer, because he says he started a major performance improvement program to boost earnings by 500 million euros by the end of 2014. What he's doing is he's going to restructure decorative paints in Europe and North America, and he's going to restructure performance coatings as well. The company will book a charge of 425 million euros in the overhaul in the next 3 years. Now, we wanted to know early, do you remember I said, will he cut jobs? Because he cut 100 jobs in the Benelux region in the last 2 weeks. They haven't announced any job cuts. They've declined to comment on the job cuts. By the way, earnings missed estimates as well. After 6 consecutive quarters of beating estimates, they've missed estimates.
Now, we all know these are difficult times, and at difficult times people sometimes turn to drink. People are certainly turning more to the drinks of Pernod Ricard and Rémy Cointreau.
Yeah, and I mean, they're basically telling the same story, and they're telling the same story that Diageo told us about yesterday. Organic sales at Pernod Ricard rose by 11%. Diageo yesterday said that organic sales rose by over 9%. What distillers are basically doing, Owen, is they're looking to higher-priced drinks in emerging markets like China to drive growth. Why they want to offset sluggish growth in Europe, and I'd be fascinating to hear what our man says about that.
Well, let's get that reaction from Angus Campbell. What do you make of that, Angus? Do you think really it is the emerging markets, and notably China, that's really pushing growth for these distillers here? Or actually, are things holding up pretty well in Europe, despite everything?
Yeah, well, Europe isn't so easy for them at the moment. You know, I mean, overall, the picture isn't looking so great for growth, etc. It's definitely, again, it's another emerging market story. And these are core markets now for the likes of the distillers, and as mentioned, Diageo They said that they were seeing good growth in the BRIC countries, and it's the same for Pernod. Myself, I often try and keep those sales going in Europe, but of course I can't do it by myself. But it's definitely these core markets in the emerging world that are helping drive those sales for the likes of Pernod. And when they're facing such big challenges here in the developed worlds, Europe and also in the US too.
Thanks, Angus. For now, stay with us, though. You're talking about real challenges and strong challenges. We've been talking about all the challenges of the retail industry over the past few weeks, few months, frankly, a couple of years. Debenhams.
Yeah, Debenhams. And you know what? I mean, it's done remarkably well in a climate where we've got job losses, where inflation is rising, where the austerity is kicking in, where we've got lower disposable income. You know, Debenhams' pre-tax profit did actually beat estimates, which many might not have expected. It's selling more of its own brand ranges. It's luring shoppers with discounts as well. So Debenhams, which, you know, is number 2 in the UK, the second largest department store operator, they've beaten estimates with pre-tax profit. It'll be fascinating to see how those shares open today. And
as for the futures, though, generally, they are pointing to a much harder down.
Not looking good, and it's all about the disagreement between Germany and France. We know about that because there was that impromptu meeting yesterday in Frankfurt, and it seems as if disagreements still prevail between the two countries about what to do with this bailout fund. FTSE futures, DAX futures, CAC 40 futures, all 1% lower today, and US futures also indicating the American market will open lower.
Angus Campbell, can I just ask you finally, when you look at those futures and the volatility that we've seen and what we're expecting over the next few days from the European leaders, my word, you've really got to have quite a strong stomach to be in these markets, right?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we've seen this little sort of breakout in the last few days for the FTSE in particular, above 5,400. And that was quite a key move. But, of course, we haven't seen any momentum go forward. So it's just like every time we go towards those highs, momentum just seems to dry up because we're still waiting to see what is going to happen this weekend. And until that happens, it's a very difficult one to call. You know, do you want to go long these equities? We've talked about some really good results this morning, but of course the overriding factor is that the Eurozone debt crisis is what we're all worried about at the moment. So, you know, there's continual, there's such a difficult sort of situation. You've got the French saying one thing and the Germans saying another. It's difficult to actually make a sort of rational decision as to whether we should really go long this market now and hope that in 6 months' time we're looking at a sort of 5–10% return.
We shall see what happens over the weekend. Angus Campbell from Capital Spreads, I'm grateful to you. Thank you very much indeed.